So let's wait for others for some time and then we'll start. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so shall we start? Or should we wait for others to join?
No, ma'am, it's okay. We can start.
After 1 minute, 2 minutes. But
Pardon, Lutfi?
Darshan and Kunj will be joining us. Darshan
Okay,
and
I'll
Nikunj might
just.
be joining us, so 1 or 2 minutes we can wait for them.
Okay. Mm, let them come. They'll join in between. First of all, I'll give you just this. We'll just revise whatever we have done till now. So, what we are doing right now is we are discussing about the research process, right? So, in the last two lectures, what all is being covered by us in the research process is we have formulated the research problem, that what is a research problem, why should we do an in-depth study into it, why it should be why it should be formulated properly, what collection of data is required before the research problem is to be done. Then we went for the literature review, that what importance does a literature review hold, why is it to be done. Then developing of a hypothesis, this helps us to decide that what should be the various focal points of our research. Then we came towards the formulation of a research design, that how can we decide that what sort of research design are we gonna use, or what different factors helps us in designing the research design. Then we came for the sampling procedure. In sampling procedure, what we have done, we have tried to understand the various different kinds of probability and non probability based sampling procedures which are available to a researcher. And at the same time, we have also discussed that it is not necessary that we should use any single sampling procedure, but we can use a combination of more than one also. Okay. So with this we will move forward. Shall we move ahead? Is there any doubt regarding the content which we have covered till now?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay.
No, ma'am.
So
No,
we'll
ma'am.
Okay, beta. So now we'll move ahead towards the data collection. Now, what is this data collection? See, first of all, I'd like to tell you that whenever research is conducted, it is on a topic which was till date untouched. In the first lecture itself, I've told you that research is something that is knowing the unknown or trying to collect further knowledge or trying to collect further data about a certain topic. So, whenever we are trying to do this further data or further collection, that process of further data or further collection is the data collection process. Here we can say that collection of data is whenever we are doing any sort of research. This collection of data is something which is a very important part for a researcher, because what happens in the research is here we are dealing with something which is related to a real life situation, and most of the time it is it can happen that you might be having a certain amount of data on hand, but at the same time it is not necessary that whatever data you are having is very appropriate. So in order to collect a correct amount of data, or in order to collect the actual data which is relevant to your subject, you have to come in contact with this point of data collection. Now there are several different resources also through which you can get the data, or which makes the data available for you, it brings them to your disposal. But this collection of information must be containing the facts for which you are looking for. If the data is not relevant to the fact which you want to consider, then the data becomes irrelevant, entirely irrelevant to us. And even after knowing that the data is irrelevant, we keep on using it, the final result of the hypothesis will not be right. Now, whenever we are talking about this data collection or types of data, there are basically two main types of data. The first type of data is primary data collection. Now, what is this primary data collection? Any sort of data which is collected first hand or with an intention of that particular subject only, that data is called the primary data. Whereas whenever you are collecting the data from a review of literature or from a published book or a library or something which is already published in one form or the other, government data, annexures, bibliographies, these things are available online. When you are when you are collecting the data from these different sources, then that sort of data is considered to be a secondary data. Now, what is the basic difference between this primary data and secondary data is, primary data, it's like schools. In primary we try to understand what are the basics of everything. What is 1 plus 1, what is a, what is b, what is c, what is d, what is 1 2 3 4 5 6. So that is what primary data is all about. It is trying to understand the concept what it is about. Whereas secondary data is like your college education. You are already aware of certain things, we are just trying to use that knowledge for further understanding. So that is what secondary data is. It is already published by someone, it is already verified by someone, it is already collected by someone else. We are just using the data. So it is a second hand data, and hence it can also be called as secondary data. It is not collected by you, it is not primarily your data. You have to give credit to someone else for that data in your research also. Like whenever we are making a research report, till now we are not talking about any sort of research report, but whenever we are making a research report, what you have to do is you have to make a bibliography. In that bibliography you have to give credit to this person, that we have taken the data from this particular chapter or this particular book or this particular journal also. So that is like giving the credit. In secondary data you have to give credit, whereas in primary data the data is absolutely yours. So whenever we are talking about secondary data, it is something which is collected through already published articles. Whereas in primary data, there it can be collected either through experiment, or you can collect it through a survey, or there are a number of ways of collecting this data. Like, if a researcher is intending to collect a certain amount of data, then he'll have to examine that this data is useful for me or not. And by collection of data, what he's trying to do is he's trying to examine the hypothesis that was being once set by him. We have already done the topic of setting of hypothesis, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with the help of this data, what we are doing is, with the help of this collected data, we are trying to quantitative with a certain amount of quantitative measures, we are trying to prove the hypothesis. We are trying to examine the truth behind the hypothesis. Now, what all methods of this primary data collection can be followed are here in serve. Like, if you are collecting the data through experiment, then it is a diagnostic measure, it can easily be collected. But if you are going for a survey, like I want to do a survey and then I want to collect data, then there are different types of methods which are available for that. The first method for data collection through survey is observation. Now, as the name itself suggests, here the person who's collecting the data will only observe an individual through which the data is to be collected. Here the investigator is completely relying on his own observation of towards the respondent. Like, I want to check that for how long a student or an individual can sit quietly if they are not given any work. So in that case, what I'll do is, I'll make some people sit in the class. I'll not inform them that what is the purpose of them for sitting in that class, and I'll just observe. I'll just note what are they doing, how are they doing, how long are they able to contain themselves inside the premises. So that is the sort of observation. Here you are not controlling any article. The the person who's conducting this experiment is basically only observing the person. Here the data which is collected is unbiased from any sort of past or future interference with the individual person. Like, when I brought to the class, what were you doing earlier is not my concern, what will you do after that is not my concern. The only concern that I'm having is how long a person is able to sit in the class. So here the information that is obtained with the help of observation relates to what is currently happening. It's completely uncomplicated in itself. It is not complicated by the past or by the future. What I'll have only that much information which I am able to see. आप इससे like, I've told you what were you doing outside the class or what will you do outside the class, I'll not be able to see that. So that information will not affect the sort of data I'll collect through observation. No doubt, this method is very expensive as compared to any other method, and the amount of data which you can collect through observation is very limited. People say that we are very good observers, we can observe a person and understand what they are going through. It is very true, they can, but only for that point of time. It like this, it can happen that you are observing a person for a sort of research which doesn't include observation at all. You want to understand that why a person is intellectually very smart, and you're trying to understand it through observation, you'll not be able to do that. So in order to collect a certain amount of data through observation, it should be related to a behavioral technique or a behavioral tactic of an individual. Only then observation can be used. Else, this method of data collection, that is by observation, is not viable because, first of all, it is very expensive. Secondly, the data which you can collect through this is very limited. And thirdly, when it comes to large sample test, observation doesn't work. You cannot observe 100 to 150 people at the same time. You'll get biased at a point of time. So whenever we are having a small sample, only then observation as a primary data collection is possible. As and when your sample size keeps on increasing, this method of data collection is not possible. Okay. So the next method of data collection for primary data in an survey data method is through personal interviews. Now what happens over here is that the investigator here has to follow a very rigid procedure, and he has to seek answers from the respondents. Now, you cannot generally ask any question whatsoever. nahi. In personal interview, you will be having a set of preconceived questions, and you'll be trying to find the answer of these questions only. Further, when we'll move towards a detailed understanding of survey method, I'll tell you that these personal interviews are not only of one time, they are open and closed both. But generally, we in every sort of personal interview, we are having these preconceived questions, and this is a method of data collection which is very structured in nature. So here, the sort of data or the quality of data that will be collected by you completely depends on the interviewer's ability and skills. How good was he able to interact with an individual, or how comfortable was he able to make an individual in his presence? On the basis of these things, you'll be able to check that what is the quality of your data. Sometimes there are some people whose existence itself makes you uncomfortable. So if that sort of person is coming to you for a personal interview, there are chances you'll give them answers which they want to listen. Whereas there are certain people who have a very comfortable aura, who will make you comfortable, who will make you smile, who will make you come at ease. So in their presence, there are chances you'll be giving them actual answers. So that depends from person to person, and that is the only drawback of this personal interview. Now, the next method of primary data collection through survey method is through telephonic interviews. Now, what happens in the telephonic interview? In this method, the information collection depends on contacting an individual through telephone. This is also an interview. But here we are not directly meeting a person. We are contacting the person through a telecommunication device, either through your phone or mobile or whatsoever it is. Now, this is the method which is not very widely used, because as soon as we get a call that, are you interested in this particular subject, we'll say no. Like credit cards. Many people get calls for credit cards. मैडम हम इस बैंक से बोल रहे हैं, and we are here to tell you that you're selected for you're selected for a credit card. I don't want a credit card. I'll disconnect the call. Point. There's no point in making further conversation. I don't want that. So here, that is a problem, and because of that particular problem, this method of data collection is not very widely used. Because see, survey is something which we have to complete in a certain point of time. And with this telephonic interview, what happens is that people keep on disconnecting the call. So you are unable to move ahead with the data collection. Hence, this method of data collection becomes a problem. The next one is by mailing the questionnaires. Here, the researcher and the respondent. In every other method, we were having an observation person or an interviewer who was coming in contact with the respondent. Whereas in this method, the respondent and the researcher comes in direct contact with each other. And that is one of the reasons due to which this particular sort of data collection method is used. Here, what we'll do is we'll make a detailed questionnaire, and that particular questionnaire will be mailed to an individual with with a request that you're requested to please fill in this questionnaire and reply or return it to us at this particular point of time. This is something which is the most extensively used method nowadays. You'll be able to see these questionnaires even on Facebook and Twitter, and with a request that this is just for the survey purpose, you are requested to please fill it up. Like there's a University of Maryland which was conducting research on what people are going through during the COVID pandemic, or what is their intention, or what is their likes and dislikes, what are their inclination towards a particular sort of medicine. This survey was going on Facebook. As soon as you open the Facebook page, this was visible to us. That is the sort of mailing the questionnaires. This is the most extensively used survey method. What you have to do in this, before applying to this method, you have to do a pilot survey. What is this pilot survey? You have to select certain people and check whether the sort of question you are making are free of any sort of biasness or weaknesses. In this pilot survey, if there is any question which is vague or which is not to be asked or which may hurt a person or respondent's feeling, is removed, and then a properly constructed questionnaire is being forwarded to all the relevant respondents. That is what this mailing of questionnaire is all about. The last method of data collection in survey method is through schedules. Now, what is this schedule? This is not like I'm telling you that the data will be collected at 2 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. No, that is not the schedule. Here, what happens is that the person here, a data collection person is hired. They are appointed and they are given a certain sort of training. Then they are provided with these schedule of relevant questions, that these are the questions which we want you to ask the people. Now, what happens in this method is that these people who are trained to ask certain sort of questions will further go to the respondents and they'll try to fill these schedules by the answers which they are getting from the respondents. Now, here also the quality of data which is collected by you completely depends on the capability of the remunerator. But like in mailing the questionnaire, what happens with us is that if a person is illiterate or is not ready to fill up the questionnaire, there are chances that your effort of collecting data may go vain. But when it comes to the schedules, no doubt a person is literate, illiterate, interested, not interested. But when someone is constantly asking you questions, you are bound to give a reply or two. That is why when you are unable to collect data through any other method, this method, that is through schedules, you can collect the most authentic data. See, in order to have a good data collection, you can select any of these tools. You can either go for completely secondary data or you can go for completely primary data. But the method of data collection should be taken into consideration, understanding the nature of investigation, the objective of your research, the scope of the inquiry, what are the financial resources that you're having, and what is the amount of time that you have, and what sort of degree of accuracy are you desiring to attain. Taking all these points into consideration, you should go for the selection of the data collection method, that I want to collect data in this particular method. If you're having ample of time, then even for a large sample, you can go for observation method. I'm having 10 to 15 years to collect the data. I'll observe everyone. Go on observing. And you're having ample of money. Go on doing that. But if you're not having that much money and that much time, then definitely you'll have to take up a method which takes a lesser amount of time. Either you'll have to send mails or you'll have to make up schedules and ask people. So that is what this data collection was about. Further, we'll move towards the next point, that is data analysis. Now, after you have collected the data, this data is forwarded for analysis, and this Data analysis is something which is the most technical job. This requires the numbers to be closely related to the establishment or the categories which you want to study. Now, what happens is that whenever we are talking about data analysis, there are three basic things which you have to do, which are also a part of data processing. So, now this data analysis is, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. This data analysis part is something which is further divided. Now what is this divided into? This is divided into data editing, data coding, data classification, data tabulation, data presentation, data measurement, and so on. So what happens with us in data collection is that we'll collect the raw data. Once that raw data is collected, can you calculate anything from that raw data?
No.
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 What you'll have to do? What will you have to do in order to collect a certain amount of information from this raw data? What will you do? Okay, you have written a book. In order to make that book understandable, what will you do?
We'll arrange it into a proper sequence. We'll classify it, or we'll edit based on the requirement which we have and which we want to
What did you?
analyze further.
Yeah, Hirva. What did you just say? What will you do?
Uh,
You'll classify
Classify and
and
like
you
put
just said the
data
word
into
data.
sequence in the based on our needs, what we need to further analyze the data.
And how will you do that? By
Classifying and processing the data.
okay, Hirva, you just said that you'll classify and edit the data. That is
Yes.
why I was trying to come back. That what did you say? What did you say? What did you have said the exact word? That when we want to use the data, what will we do? We will edit the data. First and foremost, we will do the editing of the data. We'll try to check that what is useful to us, what is useless to us. The data which is useful to us will be kept on a side, and the data which is not useful to us or which is having a biased content into it, that will be left aside. We do not want to use something which is having a bias relationship with the content which we are studying. Once this editing is done, like once with with the help of editing you have improved the quality of data, you can next take the data to coding. Now what this coding does is, this is the operation which is done in order to make the data more purposeful and more usable. After editing, we'll provide certain codes to each and every response that a person has given us, and that process of providing a certain code to the response given to us by the respondent is called data coding. Like we are using a Likert scale in order to collect data. This is something which will come later on to you. Don't worry about what is Likert scale. हमें तो पता ही नहीं Likert scale क्या होता है. Doesn't matter. I'll explain that to you. So we are using a Likert scale. In Likert scale, we are having 5 options. Like we are having disagreed, strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. These 5 sections we are having, and for every section we are having a response. That this is one. This is having a weightage of 1. This is having a weightage of 2. This is having a weightage of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on and on and on. So what we'll do is we will provide the codes to each response, so that every question will be having a numerical number of answer. Once that is done, we'll classify this data, that how many people have responded in this one, how many people have responded in have responded 2 as an answer, how many people have responded 3 as an answer, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once the classification is done, you know what is this data classification? Have you heard of this mm, data points? We we draw this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points in a, when we are having a large amount of data and we want a certain tabular format of this data, we draw this data points, and after every fourth point we slash the entire table, and we know that now there are 5, now there are 10. So every multiple of 5 is like a bundle to us. Have you done that earlier in data classification? In statistics, you must have done it. Tabulation. No?
No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. You haven't done tabulation in statistics?
No.
Ma'am, in that, like using the graph paper, we mark the points, that one?
No, not the graph. Exactly. But it is like somewhat like data classification. You are able to draw a final number out of it. By tally points, we are putting tally points for each number, and then we are able to get that what sort of numerical answer we are having to each frequency. Chalo, no problem. In the next lecture, I'll come up with this format so you'll be able to understand. Or I'll use this pen right here. Something like this we do. 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Yes, that how
5.
many common are there?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. You have done this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. These are tally points. These are called tally points. So you have done this. With the help of this, what we can do is, please, who is trying to speak up? Yes, Rutvi, your mic is not working, beta. Now go. Mhm. Rutvi, can you please write down?
Ma'am, you know,
Your voice is not clear, my dear. Can you please write down? Write in the chat box. We'll wait for you. Are you writing? Oh, she has to leave. Okay, you people are aware how to, those who are using cell phones, they know now how to write down in the chat box when you are in the lecture.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there was some network issue with Rutvi. Voice was also not very clear. Okay, so with the help of these tally points, what we can do, no matter how long or how large the data is, either you can put it up in the computer and the computer will classify the data by itself. If you are not doing that, if you want to do it by yourself, then this sort of classification can be done, and on the basis of this classification, a proper tabulated structured table can be prepared, which can easily be presented. And when it comes to measurement, we are having n number of different measures through which the data can be measured. Like once this tabulation is done, so generally what we'll do is we'll try to compute the data through various percentage or coefficient of of variation, or we'll try to check that what is the relationship between two different datas. Like for example, we are having two different populations and we have calculated the mean of that. Now, if the resultant mean is almost similar, we'll say that the data were collected from a similar sort of population. We can, by measuring, we can state that. Whereas if that doesn't happen, we can easily state that the data were collected from two different populations. So that is what data measurement is all about. Then we'll come to the data exposition, which is also having various subcategories, that is description, explanation, narration, conclusion and finding, recommendation and suggestions. So once this data is collected, what will happen? You have to describe that what sort of data it was. Then you have to give a narration. If you are trying to test a hypothesis, you'll have to give a narration to this. See, in data analysis, we come to a point where you're having a final answer to the tabulated format, where if you're using a quantitative data, you're having a numerical answer for each and everything. But in the next step, that is testing of hypothesis, you will come to the second part of data analysis, which is mentioned over here, that is data exposition. See, in testing of hypothesis, what we'll have to do is that after the analysis of data is being done, this analysis is, or with the help of this analysis, the researcher is in a position where he can actually test the hypothesis which were set by him in the earlier step. Okay, so here with the help of data, we'll be able to see that are the facts in support of the hypothesis or they are on the contrary of the hypothesis. If they are in support of the hypothesis, we can easily say that the hypotheses are accepted. We can generalize them, that whatever we were trying to find out is true, and as we have accepted all the hypotheses, so the further result can be this particular this sort of result. So we can start generalizing the idea. If these hypotheses are not accepted, then we can state that the assumption on which we started the research is not accepted, and we can again further generalize the idea of our research. Now you'll say that how will we test these hypotheses? There are a number of methods in which the hypotheses are tested. We're having methods for them, like we're having chi-square test, we're having t-test, we're having f-test. In your subject of research methodology, we'll be going through these tests also. They're very simple. There's nothing like rocket science in them. They're a comparative analysis study, and you'll find them easier than your regular states. So these are the types of tests which we do in order to justify or in order to test a hypothesis. So till now what we have done is we have collected the data, we have decided the sampling procedure, we have collected the data, we have tabulated and analyzed the data, and on the basis of that analysis of the data, we are further on the process of testing the hypotheses which were once set by us in the research process as the fourth or third step. Third step of research was setting the hypothesis. Shall we check? What was the step of testing the hypothesis, setting the hypothesis, beta? We developed the hypothesis in research process. Now, on which step did we do it? Third or fourth?
Third.
Third?
Third.
Okay. So here what we'll do, this is the third last step. Here we'll test them. There we were trying to set a focal point, that we have to focus on this, and basis on this focal point we'll be collecting the data. We'll be having a sampling procedure. Once everything was done, we came back to the same point. Now we have to test the focal points which were once been set by us. अब समझ में आया that step was not useless. We were not just uselessly doing something. We have to justify that point also. Are we clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Beta, when you are not clear, please let me know, because I cannot see you people. अगर मैं आप लोगों को देख सकती होती तो with your facial expressions I would have concluded that you are able to understand everything or not. But right now I'm not able to see you, and I cannot conclude. So your words are the verdict. Okay, so we'll move ahead. To find the answer of any process, this testing of hypothesis undertaken which may result into acceptance or rejection of any hypothesis. It is not always necessary that all your hypotheses will be accepted. It is again not always necessary that all your hypotheses will be rejected. You can have a mix and match result, and you have to generalize the idea with the help of that also. So the next thing that comes into existence is results and interpretation. Once your hypothesis is tested and they have upheld several times, it is possible for any sort of researcher to arrive at a generalization. Now, what is this generalization? This generalization is to make a theory. Okay. Once everything is tested, now you're at a step where you can easily make a theory out of it. You can generalize the idea. As a matter of fact, the real value of the research will lie in this particular step only. Each and every step is very important, but until and unless you're able to give a certain sort of interpretation, or you're able to provide a certain sort of result to the reviewer or the person who is checking, or not checking your work, who is using your work, it will be absolutely useless for him. You have done the entire procedure, but at the time of exams you did not appear for the exams. There's no use to it. Your entire semester goes for vain. So similarly is the thing in research also. This part, that is the result and interpretation part, is to be done very specifically and very perfectly. Now, when we are talking about this results and interpretation, generally these results and interpretation are a part of your hypothesis testing. With the help of your hypothesis testing, you are able to generalize an idea and come to a general interpretation. But when we are going for this descriptive sort of research, there we do not have any sort of hypothesis. We are not assuming anything. We are just describing things. So the type of research which has no hypothesis, the researcher depends upon the theory, which is known as interpretation. He there will just state the theory. Okay, it will not be a result, it will be a interpretation. They'll not be generalizing an idea, they'll just be interpreting the situation. That is why this step is called results and interpretation, or you can also call it generalization and interpretation. For the researchers which are having this hypothesis testing, for them there is a certain sort of result. The researchers which are not having a sort of hypothesis testing, for them this is a sort of interpretation. Okay. With this, we'll move towards the final step of your research process, that is preparation of a report. Now, you'll say, ma'am, research to ho gayi, ab kya ab aage aur kya? Till now, what you have done is you have done something which was very practical in nature. But with the help of that practicality, you cannot state a theory, or you cannot make a person believe that you have done something. In order to have a long-term data, or in order to make a person know about your theory, or in order to make someone aware about the situation, what you have to do is you have to submit a report. That happens with research also. So once you have done the work, it is the duty of a researcher to prepare a report of the work that is being done by him. Now, writing this report, you have to be very careful, and there are certain points which you have to take into consideration while writing this report. Is the first of all is the layout of your report. The layout should have preliminary pages, the main text, and the end matter. Now, what are these preliminary pages? Like you're having you have to acknowledge someone, you have to write a foreword that what all is included in the report. Then there should be the table of content. Then there should be a table of lists. Then the list or graph, list of the graph or chart or whatever material that you have used in the given report, that should also be there. So these are the preliminary pages. I'm sorry, I've mistakenly written graphs as grapes, and I did not even bother to correct it. आप लोग गलतियां नहीं ढूंढते मेरी? Okay. So Once you are done with this preliminary pages, we'll come to the main text. This contains the methodology of the research work. That is, here we can start with introduction, then we'll go with the literature review, then we'll state the hypothesis, then the explanation to it. This is the main text, and it should generally be divided into different chapters so that each and everything is properly stated. Here what you'll have to do is you have to make sure that we are having an introduction, we are having the summary of findings, then we are having the main report, and we are having a conclusion. So generally the number of chapters which are there in any sort of research report are, we are having introduction, we are having literature review, we are having research methodology, then we are having data analysis, then we turn up with data interpretation, and finally we are having this suggestion and generalization, then we have conclusion, then we have further steps. This is how an entire research report has been made. Once you are done with this part, what you'll have to do is you'll have to come to the end part of the research report. See kids, now what generally happens with people is they'll make the first part of the research report very pretty, they'll make the main text very pretty, but they'll not focus on the final stage. This final stage is the last step of a business research process, and this is the one which makes your work legitimate. That is, this is having the bibliography of the work which you have referred, this is having the references, this is having the appendices, this is having the indexes of if we have considered any maps or charts or illustration, that is to be mentioned over here. If there are any footnotes, the number have to be mentioned. If there were any abbreviation used, that is to be mentioned over here. So this is the part which is final and which you have to do very properly. With this, the research report ends. The research process ends over here once your report is done. Now, in the next lecture, what we'll do is we'll try to understand that what are the criteria of a good research. But for today, we'll stop over here and I'll just mark your attendance. There was this new student who was expected to come to a class, but he did not turn up. Okay. Mirali,
Yes, ma'am.
Darshan,
Yes,
Ruthvi,
ma'am.
Yes,
Keval's again not there. And we are Ayush,
Yes, ma'am.
Akshaya,
Yes, ma'am.
Irva,
Yes, ma'am.
Nikunj,
Yes, ma'am.
and Rahul is there.
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay, beta. And my dear students, your class timing is 9:50. Try to be a bit on time. We have to wait till 9:55. That is not good, no? I understand that the gap might be not enough for you, but थोड़ा जल्दी आने की कोशिश करो. It's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, beta.
Thank you, ma'am.